Is solar really going to save you as much as the salesman says? Can you see all the promises, the rebates? Will they actually happen? Could your loan payments begin before the solar even works? We're talking solar and hiring the right business to install your solar system. I'm Joe Ducey. This is the Joe Knows Better podcast from the Better Business Bureau podcast studios in sunny Central Phoenix, where solar makes a lot of sense, guys. With me, Chris Wood and Joe Cunningham, co-owners of Sunny Energy in Tempe, a BBB Accredited Business. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And how long have you been in business?
10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. Wow, that's huge here in Phoenix. That means you're a veteran.
Especially in solar, yeah.
Yeah, in solar. And Adrian Keller with Solar United Neighbors. Your mission, I know, says helping people go solar and fight for their energy rights. Thanks for being here, Adrian.
Thanks for having me.
And where are you guys located? You're in here in Phoenix, or is it?
Yep, I'm here in Phoenix. I'm the Arizona program director.
Okay.
Our headquarters are in D.C. We operate in 12 different states.
Okay, so it's a nationwide
is.
program. Okay, let's start a little bit about. I mean, we're in Arizona, but we have California and some other places with this Better Business Bureau. First of all, let me ask you about the solar industry and what you see as. Do you see sales increasing? How has that taken place? You guys, 10 years here. What from the beginning to now? What have you seen?
Well, we've seen a lot of up and down. Solar kind of goes like a roller coaster. It has a very steep climb, gets very high, and then something happens. Maybe an incentive changes, maybe a utility rate changes, and it affects the industry. Currently, we're going through an interest rate spike that's affecting the industry, and sales are down.
Okay,
Over previous years.
And this is because most people finance they take a loan out. Is that how that works?
Correct. About 2/3 of our customers have traditionally financed solar. Now, over 50% of our new customers are buying it cash outright because the financing rate.
You like that?
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Well, that's good. That's good, but it reduces the number of people that can buy.
Yeah. What would you guys say? I mean, I think the reason people go into solar is because, well, one, they want to, protect the environment, but I think, there are other reasons, selfish reasons. I think they want to save some money and take advantage of the sun. What do you tell people when it comes to how much they're going to be saving?
You have to be realistic with people. You have to make sure they have the right expectations. Mm-hmm. Like Joe mentioned, they call this industry, the solar coaster, because it does have boom and bust cycles. And savings vary widely based on utility rates, interest rates, if you're financing a system. For example, right after COVID, we had interest rates as low as below 1%. Mm-hmm. That doesn't exist right now.
Okay.
This interest rate environment, that same solar system that you're financing now has an interest rate usually between 3%, 4%, 5%, or 6%, depending on the duration.
Okay. So do you have to tell people then, I don't know if you ask your staff, whoever sells, to make sure that they know that interest rate's going to take out some of that? And I mean, you can't go and say basically, hey, can you ever go in and say, hey, your rates next year are going to be, you're only going to be paying $12 per month for electricity?
Oh, that's a really dangerous place to go.
Yeah.
You tell customers that, and they expect that to happen.
Yeah.
We'll estimate that, okay, if you continue using energy the way you have been, if utility rates stay the same, your solar system is going to get you to approximately so many dollars in a year, but we won't go down to the month. And we're going to say, if any of those things change, utility rates, the way you use, your behavior, your savings will change.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And it seems like in sales, that seems to be if there's a complaint about the solar industry, and a lot of people get solar and have great outcomes. They're saving money and everything's working really well. In fact, we had a rental home that had solar on it. I'd never had solar before. And I thought, oh man, because, I get all the complaints, with my past job and this, I see all the complaints. I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about this. And, it's on the roof. And I'm thinking, I don't even know if it's going to be working. What do I do here? This whole separate system on the side of the house. And I'm telling you, man, I barely paid a bill. I mean, it was so amazing. There were times when I had like a $3 bill or some crazy little amount. So I know that it works. But I think the way that it's being sold is crucial. Adrian, do you see that? Do you hear complaints about that? And do you have concerns?
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
not these guys, but I'm saying in general, just the industry around the country.
For sure, yeah. Sunny's one of the good ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, certainly, Solar United Neighbors, as you mentioned, big part of what we do is helping people go solar, mainly through our residential co-ops, which help people get a group discount on the price of panels. But we also help people after they've gone solar in sort of a capacity as a consumer advocate. So we've got a free help desk where people can call in or schedule an appointment and ask us questions. And usually they're calling that if they're having an issue or a difficulty with their installer or their system. And so many of the issues come down to when they sign the contract and what that conversation was like with their salesperson before they signed a contract. And we want to make sure, that consumers are educated so they know what to ask for and what to look out for. But certainly there's also responsibility on installers as well to be sure that they're selling systems the right way, the ethical way, and as Joe said, being honest with consumers about what they can expect. And so the tax credit you mentioned is a really perfect example of this. I got a call just last week from an elderly woman out in Sun City. You know, she said, I was promised this 30% tax credit. I was really counting on that to help pay for my system. But when I met with my accountant, he said, since you don't make any taxable income, you're not able to get that tax credit.
You mentioned tax rebates, and so I am going to play this video. And this person actually has an issue with the rebate itself. And he also, his name's Drew. He's in California, and he had a problem with the system not being. The installer put the panels on, but didn't move it to a location that the county wanted it to go with some shutoff valve. So it took like a lot of time. And then he also had problems with rebates. So listen to this, and maybe we can talk about it.
They were installed in December. They didn't come on. We didn't get power to the panels until September of the next year.
So you had, what, 9 months basically of no use for that solar?
Yes. Because this whole process took so long, it was outside of the date of our that window where you can get a rebate. And they had said from the start, our expectation was that they would take care of all of the rebate paperwork. They never did that. No, they never did that.
Okay, so that's Drew talking about the sales part of this. And rebates have been, we get a lot of complaints here at the Better Business Bureau, with people complaining about various places. And these are some complaints we found from around the country, various installers. One of them was I paid cash up front with the understanding I'd be getting this rebate, and the rebate never came. Another one was about told us I would get a tax credit of $18,410 from the government when I filed my taxes. He told us I could keep money, whatever. He talked about buying a yacht, whatever. He said I wouldn't get an electric bill. I believed him. I found out it was a lie. He never once said the only way I would get money is if I owe the government. I don't owe the government, so no money. This is a bait and switch. What do you say to that, Adrian, from what you've seen, and what can people do in those situations?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be really clear here because we hear the term rebate, we hear the term tax credit, and there can be some confusion.
Okay.
So currently the federal solar investment tax credit is a tax credit. So we're 30% of the total cost of installation. And that is only a tax credit you can get back if you pay federal income taxes and have some tax liability.
Okay.
So for people who may be retired or just don't have any income, they're not eligible to claim that tax credit. And it's really important that people know that before they sign a contract with their installer. 30% is a pretty big chunk. And if you're counting on that to help you pay for your system, so that's one, make sure you know if you qualify or not for this tax credit. The gentleman in the video mentioned a rebate that he said his solar installer would help him qualify for. I'm not exactly sure what he meant by that. I assume he meant the tax credit, and that's actually pretty uncommon that a solar installer would handle that for you because, again, it's you claim it when you file your income taxes. So I'd be a little weary if somebody's telling you that an solar installer will be able to file that for you.
Okay. All right. So that's good information, I think, for people when they get that. I think, what would you say, you guys, Joe, what would you say to people who are looking for solar? What should they be doing right now before they have an installer out at their place?
Do your research. Check on how solar works. You can go to places like the BBB, organizations like SIA, Sun, other nonprofit organizations that really have good consumer education. They'll tell people how solar works, what to look out for. Then you start doing your research on the companies.
Okay. All right. So find out about solar itself and how it kind of works. Solar United, I'm sure, deals with that.
Absolutely. A lot of free education. And we can also do a free satellite roof review if people aren't sure if their home is a good site for solar. And we can even do some estimation on bill modeling and what they may save with an estimate of a solar savings.
Okay. And what else? Anything else you could think of before you have this out there?
Sure. Talk to friends and family, but mostly people that have solar and have had it for a year or more. People are real excited right after they get solar, and they might give a great review saying, oh, yeah, everything went well, it got installed. But how are they a year later? That's really important.
Okay.
When somebody is satisfied and their expectations were met or exceeded after a year, that's a good experience.
Okay, that's great. All right, so you have that, and you kind of know they know a little bit more about solar and what to expect. Reviews are important, and you're kind of saying that actually when you talk to people. But the Better Business Bureau is a great place, I think, to go to reviews. I said that even before I worked here, and other places. So you want to find out, if there's a pattern of any issues. What else? Well, like when they get in, when the salesperson's there, does the salesperson usually work for the company, or can there be a third party where the salespeople are different than the company, and is that an issue?
Absolutely. One of the key questions I would ask a salesperson is, do you actually work for a contractor? A lot of these sales organizations, they do what's called blitzes. They'll parachute into a state they don't live in. They'll work there they'll knock on doors for 10 days or 2 weeks at a time. They often don't really know anything about the local utility rates, local cities, for things like your gentleman in California that didn't know about moving a box. A good local contractor would know that.
Okay.
I suspect that's probably somebody from out of state that didn't know what the local requirements were.
I have had issues I've seen before where sometimes there's a problem and the installer blames the salesperson.
Yeah.
Have you heard that happening?
We run into that constantly, where we're having an issue, can't get a hold of somebody. I talked to the installer, they told me to talk to the salesperson, or vice versa. And that's a really danger with working with a third-party contractor like that. Sometimes it can work really well, but you just have to be really careful when you're not working with the same company that does everything from sales to design to installation in-house, which is definitely a preferable option if you can go that route.
Let me read one of these things here. I think it was another... This was another one. I think we read one before where it said that they were told, now again, we haven't vetted these, so I don't know how many of the complaints are legitimate and how many, the Better Business Bureau looking through those right now. So there's that caveat. But this person says when they were sold the system, this would result my bills being $1 a month. After installation, it wasn't producing anywhere close to that amount. How can my system be fine when it costs 98 times the amount that was quoted? So what would you say to someone? I mean, get that. I would say if there's a quote, get it in writing.
Absolutely. Anything that you're expecting, things like tax credits, things like that, get it in writing. Make sure a good contractor has a contract that actually asks the customer to initial that they understand how these tax credit works. They understand how savings work.
Okay.
We guarantee production. We don't guarantee utility bills. Like Joe mentioned earlier, when you use energy, what the utility rates vary in the future, those things greatly impact what your residual utility bill. So we guarantee a certain amount of production.
Okay.
And that should be in writing.
Okay.
It's also important to use your instinct. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
We could get a person's monthly bill averaging to $1 or less per month. They're not going to like the price. That's going to be such an expensive system. It's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of feel it out yourself. Is this something that sounds believable? And then you're going to get competing quotes, hopefully, and you can compare.
Okay. Anything you'd add to that, Adrian? About
Yeah,
that?
one other thing, just encourage people to avoid really high pressure sales situations where a lot of the consumer protections issues that people run into when they call us, they only talk to one installer who showed up at their door. They signed the contract right then and there. If you're feeling really pressured, if someone says you have to sign tonight or something, or this deal will expire, take a beat, sleep on it, think about it, get a couple other bids, and compare your options then.
That's great advice. And so these are people who are coming to the doors and knocking and saying, hey, I just put solar in down here at somebody else's house a lot of times, door to door. That's still going on, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very common.
And at that point, they know more about you than you know about them. Really. I mean, they know your neighbor, they did it down the street. You don't know anything about these guys coming to the door. So your advice is basically, in that case, step back, take a beat, get the information, maybe check them out online, do the reviews we just talked about, all those things, if you're even going to entertain them as a possibility.
Yeah, definitely. Get a quote if you can, and as much as you can get in writing. That's going to help you really compare your options with other installers. Also, just like to note that for people who are brand new to solar, each solar installer compares their bids or proposals a little bit differently, and it can be a little overwhelming for people to compare apples to apples there in that instance. And that's one of the things we love doing at Sun, is helping people compare their bids and answering any questions they have so they feel really good about their decision.
Now, that would be a home solicitation sale, right? That if they come to your door and sign in your house, so you'd have 3 days to be able to.
That's correct.
To the contract, right? Now, do you typically deal in people's homes? So that would be the way, I mean, not, you didn't do it that way, but I'm saying you would sign a contract in a home.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say about half of our sales,
Okay.
maybe a little bit more than half, are done across the kitchen table in person.
Okay.
One of the things we all learned after COVID, we got real used to Zoom meetings and doing different online presentations. So we've actually seen a big pivot. We're now probably 40 to 45% of our sales are actually done virtually.
That's interesting. Now, that's interesting on a consumer, because does that get around then, not that you're trying to do that, but does that get around the home solicitation rule if you're doing it on Zoom?
I don't believe so.
Or is that still,
that's not our
interesting. I didn't think
understanding.
about that.
They still have a 3-day right to cancel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you guys would do that anyway, but yeah, I mean, that's fascinating.
Cancellation policy is a very important topic. Ask your installer, ask your company, what is your real policy? If I run into financial trouble 30 days from now, what are you going to do if I need to cancel a contract? Find out what the penalty is. Some contractors will say, well, it's not cancelable, but others might say, well, pay the hard costs. It might be 10%, 15% of the contract, and we'll let you out of it. We have that policy. There is a small fee if we have hard costs. Mm-hmm. That's the official policy. The unofficial policy is we just want you to be happy.
Yeah.
And we don't want an unhappy customer.
Yeah.
So we would rather have no customer than an unhappy customer.
That's great. That's great to hear. So, another issue that I think has come up is with the financing, and I think we talked maybe a little bit about this, but it's where the company in some cases doesn't follow through. The panels are on the roof, but there's no follow up with the county or the inspectors or something. They can't get it moving, and so they don't get the juice, or they're not hooked up to the grid, and yet the payments have started because the contractor says in these cases they did their part, they did the installation. So these people are paying monthly, maybe a couple $100, and yet they have no power. Have you seen that as an issue? I know I have, and I didn't know if that operates. Why a loan company would go ahead and do that? It's when it's installed, not when it's operating.
Yeah, that's a big wow to watch out for in the industry. Find out how your finance company, the company that's financing your solar system, find out how they pay the contractor.
Okay.
If they're paying 100% after it's installed, before it's operating, that's a dangerous signal.
There you go.
This is a problem with finance companies as much as it is with the solar companies.
Yeah.
What's that solar company's incentive to get it turned on, especially if they're in financial trouble and they're just trying to get things installed and take the money and maybe get out of town?
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but it has happened.
Well, there have been some businesses that have gone under.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And left customers hanging. Yeah, so you want to make sure that the contractor has skin in the game until the system, it's called PTO, permission to operate. The system's actually up and running, and the contractor usually doesn't get their final payment until that milestone is reached.
Is there something in a contract that the people, so you say that and people are listening, but they're probably like, how do I do that? Is there something in a contract that you put in there, say, we will not, or?
Generally not,
Is that tough?
although it's a question to ask.
Okay.
Ask the contractor, because the finance companies do offer different arrangements with the contractors
Okay.
depending on your cash flow needs.
And if they can only offer one thing and it doesn't sound like what's right, maybe go to somebody else.
Like Joe mentioned, if the customer's looking to get 100% of their money when glass is on the roof, but the system isn't working, that's a warning sign.
Okay. Are there, let me ask, are there times here in Phoenix, I mean, I don't understand why people don't have solar. It just makes a lot of sense. Well, I don't know how many sunny days, 320, I don't know. But are there situations where you can see where solar would not be advantageous? Where maybe a system might be, maybe it's a person's age. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, they own a house, they're 70s, they don't have kids. I mean, would that be, that's not really your job, I don't think, to say, hey, you don't need this, as long as you're transparent. But I just wonder if there are cases where it's not advantageous.
Absolutely. Solar is not for everyone. Not every home has the right roof for it, the right orientation. Not every customer fits the right profile. So yeah, I would say absolutely. There's probably more than half of the homes here in Phoenix that are not good candidates due to shading, roof condition, or just general economics.
Wow. Okay.
And I was in Chandler for an event last month, and a 90-year-old woman came up to me and she's like, I'm thinking about adding solar to my home, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be around once it reaches that kind of payback or break even point. What advice do you have for me? And it was a question I'd never really been asked before. And I was honest with her. I was like, with your utility, depending on the size of your system, you'd probably break even somewhere between 7 or 8 years. And is that something that you're interested in taking on now? And, what's your plan for the home after you pass? And she ended up going solar because she wanted her granddaughter to inherit that home, and that was going to be a huge savings for her. So it was a really interesting question, but that is certainly a question that people are thinking through is how long am I going to be in this home even? Do I want to move someday, or what's the situation there?
Yeah, I think, and if they have a loan that's, we had a guy who he was in the 70s, good guy, and he had a big 20, I think it was a huge place where he did a lot of work in like a shed, and he wanted it also part of the, covered. And he spent, I think it was like $75,000 for it. And then he ended up selling the house like a year later. But that's just a lot of money. And, he called us because we had, worked in television news before. And we tried to help him because the company wasn't coming through. So it just seems like a lot of money at a certain age. Are there homes? So if people, another issue, storage of energy. Are there systems you can buy where it's just you get the electricity when it's sunny? And there are other systems, I guess, who cost more where it stores energy, where you have it, and if it's not sunny, how does that work?
Yeah, storage, battery storage in particular with solar is a really good combination. Utility companies have gotten smart. They've changed their rate plans so that the highest rates are typically when the sun's not shining and you're not producing solar energy. So if you can store excess energy during the day and then use it in the evening when the rates are at their peak, and those peaks can be 5 times or more greater than they are during the day, you're saving a lot more money. You're multiplying your savings with that stored energy.
Okay, so that's something they buy through you. They could either go with the storage or without. Are there options, or
we recommend battery storage with every system we sell right now.
Okay,
but it's a smaller percentage, much smaller than what people actually purchase. And it's not necessarily more expensive. For the same savings, you're going to get a smaller solar system with a battery and essentially get the same savings on your utility bill.
Okay. Adrian, let me ask you about your organization. How do I give the name again, and also how it operates? So one more time, just about how this is for people who maybe couldn't afford solar in another way, and also you follow through with trying to help people out.
Absolutely, yeah. So we, we want to make going solar as easy as possible, but also as affordable as possible. Yeah. So what we do here in Arizona, we organize solar co-ops, which essentially are group buying programs for people to get a bulk discount on solar panels and other equipment. So Solar United Neighbors, or SUN for short, we organize the group. We recruit usually about 100 to 150 different homeowners. We educate them about everything we've been talking here, from how solar works to tax credits to how installation should expect. And then we bid out the group. So we issue a request for proposal, and solar.
Sunny Energy could possibly be one of those that bids, that kind of thing.
And they have. And they've won one of our last co-ops actually here in Phoenix.
Okay.
They were in the installer, did an amazing job.
For all of these people? How does it?
Yeah, so they'll, so let's say, just giving an example, this last Phoenix co-op, we had 150 people in the group. The co-op's free to join. Anybody can sign up. And then once an installer is selected, we'll essentially hand over that list to the installer. And at that point, it's really up to them to follow through and get as many signed contracts as we can. Obviously, we're going to partner with whatever installer is selected with some marketing and encouraging people to go ahead and sign a contract if it feels really good for them. But we're there as a third party. So if people have questions or concerns, or they have questions about financing, they can come to us and know they're going to get a really good answer in their best interest, that we're not just trying to push a sale on them.
Okay.
And then even after installation, we're there as their kind of watchdog as well.
Okay. And so you go back if there's a company issue. I'm sure there have been none with Sunny, but in the past, say there were issues. You go back and then try to work with the company and.
Certainly, yeah. Yeah, there's been some area issues. It doesn't happen very often because we work with really high quality installers, but every once in a while, maybe a part isn't working 2 or 3 years after installation. For example, somebody's having difficulties getting a hold of their installer, or they're not really sure who to contact. We can step in as that intermediary and help resolve the situation.
I guess, we've been moving here. We're about ready to wrap up. So let's talk maybe just some final thoughts about what people kind of how people find the good businesses and just how to protect themselves. What is there an issue that you see kind of overall that you would like to warn consumers about? Maybe we've already done it here, but is there something that just kind of stands out that you think this is something consumers need to do?
I think the number one thing for me is always get multiple bids. Use capitalism, use competition to your advantage. Get a minimum, I say 3 bids if you can. That's really going to help you understand your options, talk to some different people, and better understand how solar works, and hopefully end up with the best value for the best product that you're looking for. And I would also say that checking reviews, as we mentioned here, is really important to make sure that you're working with a company. I really like how you phrased it earlier. Talking to somebody after they just got installed, they're probably going to be really, really happy with it. Try to talk to your neighbor who's had solar for 3 or 4 years.
Okay. All right. Anything more you guys think of?
You mentioned something earlier. I think it's very true. It's something I tell my friends and family. You said you had solar, your bill was really low, you were super happy. If solar is designed the right way, if it's sold the right way with realistic expectations, it works. People are extremely happy that have it. The bad experiences are caused really by a few bad apples out there that don't sell it the right way, don't honor their warranties, things of that nature. If it's done the right way, it works.
All right.
And I hear so often from somebody who did have a bad experience, I really like the salesperson. That's why I went with them. Yeah. That's great. He might be.
They did their job.
He might end
salesperson.
He might end up being your best friend, but you really want to like the company behind him. Do your homework on the company. Even if you love this salesperson, do the homework on the company and make sure that's someone that you want to do business with now and 20 years from now.
How, I guess the last thing, we're talking about businesses maybe not, living up to expectations and all, but consumers also they have to take care of themselves. And do you see sometimes just consumers that are just totally clueless about what this is, and yet they've entered into these agreements?
Comes up quite a bit, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. And so you basically are saying, you need to know whether this is good for you, and there are a lot of things you could do before you even get into this.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if the consumer is working with a good installer who is being honest and knows how to sell solar the right way, hopefully they're not signing a contract where they don't understand what they're signing. But yeah, there's certainly some responsibility on the consumer side here to know what they're getting into.
How hard is it to deal with because I know there are 2 sides to this thing. I was a pro-consumer, but I was never been anti-business, and I always say that because I know there's another side in these situations. But how tough is it to deal with a consumer who just maybe isn't in the right? You know what I'm saying? You don't want the bad review. You want to keep them happy. Yeah. But at the same time, you can't just give everything. So, I mean, is it tough? Is it a balancing thing?
It is difficult, and we've learned a few things that help in that regard. We have the first page of our contract is a list of disclaimers, and the consumer has to initial every one of those.
Okay.
Hopefully they're reading it while they initial it. It's in bold writing. And these are topics that have come up in the past of, you didn't tell me about this, or we didn't discuss that, or you told me something different. These are very explicit in how they address those things. After a contract comes in, a few days later, we do a welcome call. And during the welcome call, it's sort of do you know what you did? Do you know what you're entering into with this contract? for a solar system. Did your salesperson tell you anything that's not on the contract?
How many times you get, oh no, really? Oh, I don't want any part of this. And then you're like, man, I don't want to make that follow-up call anymore.
That used to happen, but
Yeah.
then salespeople find out, okay, they're going to do this welcome call. I need to clean up my act.
Okay. Oh, because you're basically checking on them.
Yeah.
Making sure everything was done properly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One other thing a consumer can do is just use your common sense. If it sounds too good to be true,
Yeah.
it is. Don't get pressured into a high pressure sale. There are no little government known incentives. There's no free solar. If you're things like that, those are red flags. Run away.
Okay.
That's not a company to deal with.
That's great.
And I just need your signature on this proposal to show my boss. Don't sign anything until you're ready. You don't know if there's really a contract attached to that.
So make sure you know what you're signing.
Absolutely. And if anything if you're listening to this and you're thinking about going solar and you're unsure or confused about any of this is exactly why Solar United Neighbors exists. We want to give consumers confidence and also the education they need. And we would love to help anybody who's thinking about solar who may need some help.
Well, I hope we did help people. I think we did. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you guys. Adrian Keller, Solar United Neighbors, and that's solarunitedneighbors.org. Okay. And Joe Cunningham and Chris Wood, Sunny Energy, co-owners there. You guys have been in business for a long time. Better Business Bureau, accredited businesses, so you operate at a higher standard. Thank you for that. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I'm Joe Ducey, helping businesses and consumers get it right. Before hiring, go to bbb.org, check reviews, and for accredited businesses that agree to operate ethically. And see all my podcasted videos, joeknowsbetter.bbbcommunity.org.